Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get right into the stories. Our first story is by betheliquor. Customer takes manager's advice. A few years ago, I worked at a sporting goods store that sells firearms. Some customers would buy online and then have those items shipped to the store and then come in for the background check and pick them up. A customer comes up to the gun counter and says he has an order for pickup. I check the safe and find the guy's firearm and unbox for his inspection to ensure this is what he ordered and it is in good condition, as there are no returns on firearms once they are purchased. This order was for a very nice and expensive Browning Satori over/under 28 gauge shotgun. Of course, I get to handle it and admire the beautiful craftsmanship of the inlay on the receiver, as these are rarely seen in the store, especially in 28 gauge. This is the conversation that followed as we're filling out the paperwork. Wow, this is truly an amazingly exquisite shotgun.
Yeah, it's also the most expensive one you guys have available online at $2,500, but I didn't pay that.
Really? Well, if you don't mind me asking, how much did you get it for?
$1,250.
What? How did you manage that?
Well, I bought a cooler for $100 a few weeks ago and it wasn't big enough, so I tried to return it. However, your store's policy dictates that without a receipt, it can only be refunded for the lowest sell price in the last 30 days, which at one point was on sale for $70. I wasn't going to take that, so I talked to your manager. After 30 minutes of arguing, he was unwilling to make an accommodation and advised me to call the 1-800 customer service number, so I did. I had to wait on hold for more than 2 hours to talk to a rep, and after explaining what happened, I was offered a 50% off coupon on any one item online or in store. Now, I don't really need a new shotgun, but I found the most expensive one to use my coupon on just to stick it to your company for your manager's unwillingness to return the cooler for full price.
That is awesome. What did you do with the cooler?
I returned it and happily accepted the $70. Oh, and if you see your manager, tell him I'd like to treat him to a dinner, because calling the 800 number was the best advice he could have given me.
This is actually kind of a very fun thought. If you had a 50% off coupon for any one thing, let's say for a generic store, so something that sells groceries, furniture, electronics, stuff like that. If you could get half off of one thing, what would you go and get? Would it be furniture? Would it be some kind of electronics? Would it be some kind of collectible thing? Let me know what you would want to get 50% off of in the comments down below. Our next story is by MCG42 Ray. Can't wear blue jeans at work? Well, okay then. Not very malicious, not very compliant, but if you want to know what it is like trying to manage 20-something Silicon Valley software engineers, then read on. I worked as a programmer for a small Silicon Valley financial software company of about 40 people, and we were all in one cubicle office space. Marketing, sales, admin, support, and engineering. In Silicon Valley, the dress code among technical people is extremely casual. As in,
you're going out of the house wearing that?
And we scruffy people were kept in the back while the people who dealt with customers were up front by the entrance. And all was good. Until bosses got the notion that engineers should look professional because clients got shown around the office, and so word came down from on high that blue jeans were not appropriate attire. Not good. Nobody wants to wear fancy duds while coding. This was about the time Levi's started to sell jeans in other colors. Blue denim wasn't the only choice. You could get gray or black. Exact same comfy jeans, just a different color. So we switched to gray or black jeans. No more blue jeans, just as required. And that worked for a while. Then the message from management with eye roll was, "Okay guys, no jeans of any color." And so we all ignored it and business went on, and in my time as software engineer, it wasn't the last time silly edicts from on high got ignored, but it was the only time there was any effort made at compliance. If you want to get extra technical, you could maybe argue that gray and black aren't colors, they're shades, but obviously that wouldn't fly very well against a boss, but still. Maybe it could excusably let you fly by a little bit longer because you had some kind of really technical explanation as to why. The next story was written to us by NailBunny1313, lesson learned about productivity. So I was working for a small mom and pop health food store. Full staff including owner, probably only 15. I was hired to do data entry type work. First day and I'm seated next to the only 2 other people doing this job. We take the online orders and re-enter all the data, from customer info to product purchases, into another program, possibly QuickBooks. I'm given a very small batch of papers to rekey into the other program. The other 2 people are typing slowly. I mean almost excruciatingly slowly. The manager is in another room, so he's not watching us work. Being eager to do a great job, I fly through my stack of papers in about 2 hours of my 8-hour day. I proudly walk into the manager's room and ask for more data to key. He tells me that was my work for the entire day. He tells me I can leave for the day and that I would be getting paid for only the time I worked. Now I got it. Now I realized why the other 2 worked at the pace they did. I was never told to go home early after that, although it pained me to type so slowly and work so far below my potential. So, you're telling me they hired 3 or 4 or whatnot people to do this job, when I would assume one suitable for the job person should be able to handle it themselves. I am all for mom and pop shops doing well, but this is so incompetently managed and is bleeding money uselessly. Unless OP was able to look on their phone or browse around on whatever computer they were doing, that would be torture to me having to sit there for 8 hours and stretch out all this work for just typing into the computer. It would honestly feel like I'm wasting my day away just sitting there trying to act slow. Our next story is by cosmicrackhead. Make fun of my learning disability and make me finish your project? Fine, enjoy your F. Context. You aren't zoned for a particular public middle and high school in New York City. You have to apply, interview, test, and get in. It's a grueling competitive process, and I attended a very academically competitive middle school. Students often went on to attend specialized high schools, which they take an additional test for called the SHSATs. At age 11, I was diagnosed with ADHD, MDD, and an anxiety disorder. I received accommodations for such, off-site testing, classes with 2 teachers, weekly counseling, and teachers were not low-key about it. In 7th grade, the class received books detailing requirements to get into every New York City public high school. During homeroom, everyone was chatting about their dream schools. Kid sitting across from me, let's call him A, asked me what my first choice was. I told him it was Art and Design High School, and he started laughing hysterically. I asked A what was so funny, and he pointed to the math requirement. You needed a 91% in math to get in. I was already crushed, but A continued, saying he heard the math teacher and I talking about my 61% a week ago. The kid sitting adjacent from me, B, erupted into laughter as I ran out of the class in a fit of anger. The next week, A, B, and I were placed in a group project for English. At first, they were underwhelmed, but when the teacher, Mrs. K, handed out our trimester progress reports and they saw my whopping 105%, I got an A on most every assignment, did extra credit I did not have to do. They were delighted. Each of us were responsible for working on a portion of the Google Doc, which Miss K would be checking to make sure we did our part. I finished my portion in a single class period, while A and B struggled to get past their first questions. That's when A spoke up and said, "OP, since you're not studying for the SHSATs like us, why don't you do our parts?" B agreed, but then said, "I don't know, A. She is an R word, so don't expect a good grade." I grinned and pulled out my progress report. Okay, tell that to my 105%. Each of them offered me $10, which I gladly accepted, and told them to hand over their email password so I could log into the doc as them. I did a horrible job on their portions of the project and asked them to proofread it. They said no because they were far too busy with the SHSATs. A and B were stunned when they each received a 50%. This counted for 20% of our final trimester grade, bringing them down from an A- to a B. They complained to Miss K that I sabotaged their projects, so she pulled up the timestamps of them working on the project and scolded them for blaming me. When A and B asked how I got a 96% and they got a 50%, even though I did all their work, I smirked and said, "I don't know, after all, I am an R word." Their faces went white, looking absolutely defeated. These people are absolute jerks, and I'm glad that OP not only sabotaged their work on this project, but managed to get $20 out of it too, $10 from both of them. I don't think they expected to get so outsmarted. Our next story is by iyamgrute. Do you want to teach this class? Okay. Back in middle school, we had a teacher, we'll call him Mr. Teacher, who was kind of a jerk. He was kind of an odd guy who came off as very condescending to students. He also seemed kind of disinterested in teaching in general. One day, during math class, he's generally butchering a lesson on the basics of algebra, literally the introduction to how an equation is formed and balanced. One kid is really struggling and asking a lot of questions. Mr. Teacher is struggling to come up with a coherent explanation. Finally, the class clown, we'll call him Kid, who was actually pretty smart, couldn't handle it anymore and interjects. "Mr. Teacher, you're explaining this in a really confusing way. It's not as complicated as you're making it out to be." Mr. Teacher says, "Look, do you want to teach this class?" "Sure, I bet I can explain it better than you are right now." "I'd like to see that. Go right ahead." Now, the tone of this wasn't friendly. Mr. Teacher was trying to put Kid in his place, and he was really sarcastic about the whole thing. You could tell he thought Kid was going to bomb and be embarrassed. Well, Kid marches up to the whiteboard, grabs a marker, and spends 5 minutes walking the struggling kid through the lesson, in front of the entire class. His explanation is clear, it makes sense, and at the end the struggling kid goes, "Oh, okay, now I finally get it. Thanks." Mr. Teacher is pretty sour about this turn of events and picks up on a small detail. Detail X that Kid omitted from his explanation. He says, "You know, Kid, you didn't mention anything about Detail X." Kid turns around and looks dead in Mr. Teacher's eyes and says, "Mr. Teacher, do you want to teach this class?" The class erupts in laughter and clapping, and Mr. Teacher looks like he wants to kill the kid. Meanwhile, it was legit like a movie, and the bell rings and class ended. Now this is an absolutely smooth move. Hopefully he didn't, but if this happened to me, that would probably be like the peak of my life. I wouldn't get any cooler than that. I would love to watch this condescending teacher get shut down and sulk while the entire class is erupting in laughter and clapping at him getting so burned. Our next story is by PugC. Regulation haircut? Sure. This is while I was serving my drafted army duty, 1-year conscription in my country. My hair was a bit long before entering and I had to cut it so it didn't reach or cover my ears or the top of my shirt at the back of my neck. At first I didn't mind much, and neither did my fellow draftees. After basic training, however, things started to change. I got some officers who were on power trips and were very meticulous about all the most minute rules. It didn't take long before we got tired of it. At one inspection, some of my fellow draftees were told their hair had grown too long and they needed a haircut before the platoon would be given weekend leave. "A soldier must always look tidy and spotless, especially when mingling with civilians," they said. At almost every weekend we had to leave, they managed to find something that needed improving before they let us go. We were always the last platoon to leave camp, and we found we had reached and crossed a line and something had to be done. A fellow draftee had a buzz cutter, a small machine that could cut our hair really short. He charged us a small amount to cut our hair if we wanted, but few had used his services until now. So most of us had a regular but short civilian haircut. Almost none had gone for the army look or buzz cut. We read up on the regulations and found that the only relevant points were that hair should not cover even the top of our ears, nor touch the shirt in the back of our necks. We also couldn't use bright colors in our hair. Cue malicious compliance. Almost everybody in our platoon decided to join in on the fun, and we got creative. There were mohawks aplenty, not all of them symmetrical or straight. Weird patterns were cut. Sporadic long and short hair all over our heads. One even made sure to shave a big bald spot in the back, leaving only 2 dots and a horizontal line, making a blank stare face in the back of his head. The officers were impatient as we took our time getting this done, but they had said something to the likes of, "Don't show yourselves here until your hair complies with the regulations." So we let them simmer a bit. We eventually formed up on the parade ground with our berets on, mostly covering our creativity. A few smirks and snickers could be felt among us as we waited for the command to bare our heads for inspection. I will never forget the look on my officers' faces when they realized what we had done, and it dawned on them that we were all compliant with the regulations. About half of us kept it up for the rest of our service, trying out various patterns and looks every month or so. It was always a pleasure to see the regret in the eyes of our officers whenever we were indoors, and regulations had us go bareheaded without our berets. Particularly after getting a new cut showing off our new patterns and unbridled creativity. It was like constantly rubbing our malicious compliance in their faces. When we finally had finished our year of service, one of the officers complimented us on our creativity and perseverance. Sometimes when you're confined to 4 walls that you don't necessarily agree with, you gotta find some creative way to cope with it. And these crazy, weird, abstract hairstyles was within the regulations, fun, compliant, and let you get a kick out of the entire situation that previously you had been frustrated with. And our final story of the day is by the annoyed face you write out in text with the underlines was taken. My dad makes a lady miss a flight. Okay, my dad is an Uber driver, so you will think that people would think he knows what he is doing. Not this one lady. My dad would be just driving and saw on the GPS to turn on Street 6A because Street 6A has less traffic than Street 6B. A lot less traffic. My dad was just going to turn 6A. Lady, let's say Karen, did not like that. "What are you doing?" "Oh, just turning on 6A. "Why?" "Because 6B has gets cut off." "No, I'm going here. It's 6B. It is." But gets cut off again. "I don't want to hear your freaking bull. I have been living here for 18 freaking years. I know what is the freaking best way to get to the airport." My dad does not take shoot from anybody, so at this point, she would be kicked out of the car, but she is going to the airport, so why not make someone lose their flight? You should know what is coming. Okay, I will go this way, and turned on the street. 3 minutes later, a car comes behind them. 10 minutes later, "Can we turn on 6A now?" "Sorry, a car's behind us." 30 minutes later, 1 hour later, and now they are in the airport and the Karen missed her flight. My dad was bored out of his mind, but he said, that lady missed her flight and that was good enough. So I see both sides. Obviously, I see the dad side because the GPS said this way has less traffic and will get you there faster. Sure, absolutely. I also see the lady side because I don't know if I would actually just blindly trust that an Uber driver knows the best route to go anywhere, software or not. If they've historically gone 6B all the time to go to the airport and they saw that the Uber driver was turning on 6A a way they had never taken, they may have justifiably, in their opinion, thought they were going the wrong way. Especially when they've historically gone 6B all the time and got to the airport no problem. That said, when the Uber driver would try to explain why they chose to go on 6A, I would listen to it and weigh the concerns. If they said the GPS software said there's way less traffic on 6A and will get you there faster, I would listen to it, not cut them off and demand, oh, you go 6B, like a Karen. That being said, that's all the time we have for today, so if you have a favorite of one of these stories I've read for you today, let me know which one and why in the comments down below. Besides that, if you please could, consider giving this video a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on. Both of those things are crazy helpful for me right here on the Storytime channel, and continues to help the channel grow each and every day. So no matter what you did, whether it was just watching the video, giving it a like, subscribing for the first time, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time right here.